Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us here on KAKM for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. Up first is a warning map here. We've got high wind warnings out for the eastern Alaska range for this evening until midnight tonight for winds gusting to 70 miles per hour through the passes. And that strongest winds will be west of the toe cutoff, and after the strong winds this evening, winds will gradually diminish after midnight, and so the warning probably will be dropped by midnight. And on to the next chart here, showing the headlines of pretty heavy rainfall occurring across a significant portion of the state today, the heaviest occurring along the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. Elfin Cove picking up 2.16 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. These are 24-hour amounts ending at 4 p.m. this afternoon. Yakutat nearly 2 inches of rain. Cordova a little over 1.5 inches, and Sitka a little under 1.5 inches. So pretty wet conditions there. Looking at the satellite imagery here, you can see the next storm that's going to bring gale force winds into the western Aleutians tonight and then into the central Aleutians during the day tomorrow. Stands out quite vividly here south of the Komodorsky Islands, southeast of Kamchatka Peninsula. And Petropavlovsk right there, and Shimia just off to the east there, just now coming under the influence of that cloud shield and the rain associated with that system. A lot of clouds here over the central Bering Sea, or the west central Bering Sea. Some of that trailing down brought some showers in across the central Aleutians earlier today, and that whole area is moving eastward, so that'll bring some showers in across the Pribilof Islands tonight. You can see this area of clouds right through here. That's going to move in, bring some showers overnight to St. Paul and St. George Island. Otherwise, there's the front that's now just bearing down on the western Aleutians currently. And then here's the front that brought all the rain. Mass of clouds here brought all the rain to the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. The first front, the first push of the rainfall there up along the Brooks Range this afternoon and kind of wrapping back down along the west coast. Pretty good trough, main area low pressure right in through here. And there was some pretty good rainfall amounts over a good portion of the southwest interior today. McGrath picking up about 1/3 of an inch, Antioch seeing 2/3 of an inch of rain, so some pretty good wetting and soaking rains occurring across a pretty good area here of the western and southwest interior, also into south central Alaska, with this whole area shifting to the northeast later tonight and tomorrow. Otherwise, there was some clearing here over the eastern interior, and that allowed enough heating to trigger some scattered thunderstorm activity from the upper Yukon Valley down into the eastern interior and the upper Tanana Valley over toward the Eagle area. At the front, right about in this position here, so still raining in Yakutat and over around Cordova, and rain over the northern portion of the southeast coast, a little more showery down to the south. And then here's that trough dashed in with that area of moisture that's going to be advancing eastward tonight to the Pribilof Islands, and then that'll kick into the southwest coast tomorrow and then actually go northward to the Seward Peninsula on Sunday. And you'll see this front out here to the west brings those gale force winds in, southwest or south to southeast winds gusting as high as 50 miles per hour, with periods of rain, possibly heavy at times out there. Then the showers here with this trough. Look for a break here, kind of the first trough shifting up to the northeast. So a pretty good area of numerous showers and rain here over the Kuskokwim Valley, shifting northward up into the interior, central interior areas, and mostly back to the west. Still some scattered showers, so diminishing precipitation over the southeast interior. Copper River Basin, those winds which gusted today to 35 miles per hour at Gulkana, and also over at Skagway. Those will be diminishing tonight. And again, the high wind warning ends at midnight there for the Alaska Ranger Delta. Had gusts of 50 miles per hour earlier today. Otherwise, again, some breaks here over the interior still tonight with areas of rain and showers back to the west. We've got showers up over the western Brooks Range area, and also some showers over the eastern Brooks Range. And this front now kind of trailing through the southeast coast there. So periods of rain continue tonight, more of a showery condition down to the south. And then we'll see for the forecast for tomorrow, that front pushes the gale force winds in toward Adak and Atka. Probably Atka kind of right on the edge there, but they're under the influence of a gale warning for tomorrow as well, with the rain staying from Adak west out to Shemya. So you'll probably see the increase in the wind, but not the rain there at Atka until later in the day, or probably tomorrow night. Otherwise, low clouds and fog covering a big portion of the Bering Sea. High pressure over the Alaska Peninsula, about 1,027 millibar high. That's going to shunt this moisture from the Pribilofs tonight up to the southwest coast tomorrow. So look for areas of marginal VFR, possible IFR along the coast with the scattered showers and clouds, but over the interior, southwest interior, drying out from what you saw today. Partial clearing here over Bristol Bay and up over the Kuskokwim Valley and Yukon Delta areas. Still some scattered showers, but becoming isolated later in the day tomorrow here. Could see a few showers develop over the Chugach Mountains and the Talkeetnas, as well as the western Alaska Range, but trending toward drying conditions. Actually, that'll begin here over south central Alaska after midnight tonight and continue through tomorrow. Just some scattered showers over the Copper River Basin, partly sunny skies. And then this front trailing through the southern southeast coast, that'll keep a chance of rain in the forecast there, with some scattered showers back to the north and northwest. And then quite an area of numerous showers and rain here over the central interior, the mid-Tanana Valley areas, scattered showers over the upper Yukon Valley. And then chance of some thunderstorm activity from the lower Koyukuk Valley back to the northwest there across the Kobuk Valley into the western Brooks Range area. Otherwise, scattered showers across the north slope and much of the Brooks Range during the day tomorrow. Low clouds and fog, though. Areas of IFR along the central and eastern Arctic coast a little bit better to the west. And then taking a look at the outlook for Sunday, that front not really pushing eastward all that fast. That's going to keep the rain and wind in over the central Aleutians, with still some gale force winds possible in the narrow band in advance of that front there through the central Aleutians and into the central Bering Sea as well. That low center staying back here towards Shemya and Attu, so a lot of showers back in that area, and this front not really advancing to the east too much. A pretty good ridge of high pressure here popping up across, or actually continues to begins to build tomorrow and continues northward here. That's going to push that moisture from the southwest coast up and across Norton Sound, bring a chance of showers to the southern Seward Peninsula area, over to the Nulato Hills and that part of the state. Otherwise, not too bad. Variable clouds there across Kotzebue Sound into the northwest interior. A few isolated showers over the western Brooks Range, a little more numerous, with some scattered thunderstorm activity up there over the western Brooks Range area. You could even see some showers out along the eastern Arctic coast, but along with that will be areas of low clouds and fog really all along the coastline. But again, the lowest conditions look like it'll be along the central and eastern Arctic coast, with not much in the way of a gradient there. So winds will be on the light side. Otherwise, partly to mostly sunny here for south central Alaska on Sunday. Risk of some isolated showers over the Talkeetna Mountains and the western Alaska Range. Scattered showers possible over the mountainous terrain of the Copper River Basin zone. Otherwise, the southeast coast here looking dry, with partly to mostly sunny skies there. Should be dry, will be dry here for the North Gulf Coast as well. Prince William Sound, could be some sunshine. And this northwest wind will make it dry for Kodiak Island with mostly clear conditions, but some of this moisture from this trough will slide on southward, so probably won't be completely clear or cloud free. There will be some passing clouds from time to time, but should be a pretty good Sunday there, dry conditions. Most of this moisture here will stay to the southeast of the island there. In fact, this will track eastward and should move across the Queen Charlotte's sometime on Monday or early Tuesday, and probably miss the southeast coast here altogether, but it wouldn't take much of a northward track shift to bring the chance of rain into the southern southeast coast. But right now it looks like it'll all hit the Queen Charlotte's or to the south, but there will be on Sunday some low clouds and fog for some marginal VFR flying conditions there along the Prince of Wales Island location. Otherwise looks pretty good for the remainder of the Panhandle. Temperatures down that way today in the upper 50s to lower 60s. Annette Island 65, one of the warmer locations down that way, but Sitka with rain was 63. That same temperature also observed at Klawock and Skagway. 58 in Juneau with 57 at Elfin Cove, 58 over at Yakutat. The North Gulf Coast in the mid-50s with Valdez at 54 degrees and rain. 56 in Seward, 59 down in Homer. Kodiak up to 63. 57 at Kenai, 60 in Anchorage. 5 degrees warmer over Gulkana there in the Copper River Basin and Copper Center, with 73 at Northway today, but upper 60s back across the mid-Tanana Valley there at Fairbanks. Tanana up to 59, and Fort Yukon had 68, but just 61 over at Bettles. In the Brooks Range, temperatures range from 54 at Anatuvik, which isn't much of a range at all there, to 55 at Arctic Village. Up along the Arctic coast, Barrow stuck at 39 this afternoon at 4 p.m., but Wainwright at 46, Dead Horse up to 50, 52 degrees there at Point Lay, upper 50s to lower 60s here over the northwest interior, and kind of a range here along the southern Seward Peninsula with Golovin at 55, but some sunshine, and actually Nome reaching 68 this afternoon, 57 at Unalakleet, and there's a 55 at McGrath, and pretty uniform temperatures here over much of the southwest interior, mostly in the mid-50s, but Sparavon just 49 this afternoon, and then out there at Gamble 48 degrees. And the Pribilos right around 50 degree mark this afternoon with St. Paul at 50, and mid to upper 50s here along the Alaska Peninsula on up into Bristol Bay. Lower 50s the central Aleutians, upper 40s out west. For the lows tonight, upper 40s to upper 50s here across the southeast coast. Otherwise, southern Alaska looking in the mid 40s to lower 50s, with lower to mid 50s over the interior areas. Warmest back here across the Noatak and Selawik Valley areas, and then not too bad up along portions of the North Slope at the Arctic coast there. Low clouds and fog, temperatures in the mid-30s in that area. Otherwise, upper 40s to lower 50s over the southwest interior. Near 50 for the Alaska Peninsula, mid-40s for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. And then for tomorrow, the highs, not all that warm, nowhere forecast to reach 70 degrees tomorrow, but closest areas would be the upper Yukon Valley there and possibly the southern southeast coast. But again, Annette forecasting a high of 66 degrees tomorrow, 64 at Fort Yukon. That's about it, except for the 65 there at Gulkana. And otherwise, lower to mid 60s here, south central Alaska, with more sunshine tomorrow than what we saw today, definitely, and also down over Bristol Bay. Flying weather, marginal VFR again with that front trailing through the southern southeast coast. Look for the lower flying conditions over the central and southern areas. VFR back to the north and into some more marginal VFR here over Prince William Sound. Over the Wrangell Mountains in the Alaska Range, western Alaska Range areas of marginal VFR as well. And marginal VFR may not be this widespread around Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula, but early on it could be. And then areas of quite an extensive area of marginal VFR here over the southeastern Bering Sea from Bristol Bay right up across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Norton Sound, to the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula. And then there's some IFR up along the central and eastern Arctic coastal areas with marginal VFR to the west, and then a huge area of IFR out here from the Pribilof Islands all the way out southwestward there to the Shimmy and Attu area, covering much of the Aleutian chain. And then for passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR forecast for both Anatuvik and Adigan tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR at times. Rainy, same forecast. Eastern Alaska Range, or the central areas there, windy first at marginal at times. Isabel and Mintasta, both Isabel probably holding marginal throughout most of the day. Mentasta trending toward VFR by late morning and into the early afternoon. Tanita, same forecast, turning out marginal, becoming VFR. Portage, marginal VFR, becoming VFR as well in the late morning hours. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR there as well, becoming VFR by afternoon. Freezing levels showing 6,000 feet, the lowest, the coldest air aloft here right over south central Alaska, and then about still a pretty good gradient here across the panhandle with that front trailing right across the southern areas there. So anywhere from 8,000 feet in the north to 14,000 feet down toward Dixon Entrance and across the net, and that'll support some warmer temperatures in that area tomorrow, but nowhere reaching 70 degrees. Otherwise, pretty slack gradient temperature-wise here across the Bering Sea, and then you get out 8,000 to 10,000 foot levels there over the western Aleutians. And icing possibilities here with that front coming in, areas of light to isolated moderate rime icing here coming into the western Aleutians tonight and then shifting eastward toward AKwx during the day tomorrow. Look for some icing here along the southwest coast, Nunivak Island area, and then with all that moisture shifting up into the central interior and still enough moisture up along the Brooks Range and the North Slope. Even the eastern Arctic coast got some possibilities of some light, moderate, or mixed rime icing types up there for tomorrow, but pretty good here along the southeast coast, starting out with some icing threats here over the southern areas, and then that kind of vanishes by late in the day. Upper level wind flow chart here showing the upper low tracking into the central interior, taking most of the showers and moisture with it into from southwest here, pushing it into the central interior tonight, with the main jet kind of south of south central Alaska across the Gulf into the southwest coast at about 120 knots. Ridging taking place out here over the eastern Bering Sea ahead of that next big storm pushing the gale force winds into the western Aleutians and central Aleutians tomorrow at 9,000 feet southwest flow, 25 to 30 knots across the interior, up to 50 knots out here over the western Aleutians, and lighter, more westerly winds here across the panhandle. Kind of a variable wind condition up there along the Arctic coast, 10 to 15 knots there, 3,000 feet southwesterlies up to 25 knots, and then 35 to 50 knot winds into the western and central Aleutian areas tomorrow. And with that will be an area of moderate chop below 6,000 to 8,000 feet here over the southwest Bering Sea down across to AKwx, and that'll be tonight over the western Aleutians, pushing eastward and then edging its way over toward Atka late in the day. Otherwise, some areas of possible light to isolated moderate icing or turbulence here over the central and eastern interior. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of the Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, thanks for tuning in to Hangar Flying. This evening, we are pleased to have Ms. Millicent Hoeppner back on our program. She is an aviation accident investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board. She's right here in Anchorage, and we are very pleased to have her back on our show. Welcome, Millicent.
Thank you, Mary.
The National Transportation Safety Board recently issued a safety alert that's especially timely. It's called See and Be Seen. Your life depends on it. Can you start by telling us exactly what a safety alert is?
A safety alert is an informal tool that the board uses to educate pilots and mechanic and the flying, general aviation flying public about special emphasis areas and trends that we may be seeing in our accident data.
So this alert talks about the importance of maintaining separation from other aircraft. What other topics do they cover?
There are 29 different safety alerts that the Office of Aviation has put out. They cover a variety of topics from crew communication to mechanics about the work that they do and double checking that it's proper and they followed the right procedures, and to other pilots about listen to your airplane. If you think you have a problem, don't push the limits. Lots of different things at a variety of different audience members.
And if people were interested in seeing some of these alerts or learning more about them, where could they go?
They're all on our website at ntsb.gov under Safety Advocacy. You can look for safety alerts.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us about some of the problems that the NTSB investigators have been seeing when they're investigating mid-air collisions?
It's difficult. We found that mid-airs can happen at anywhere, at any phase of flight. What we've noticed is that a lot of times they happen in day VFR conditions, which maybe there's just more people flying at that time, but we found that there's never a time when you cannot not look for traffic, because it can happen near an airport or in a cruise flight. You're really susceptible to it at any point in time.
And there are some activities that I'm sure are seen more often than others while mid-air collisions occur. Is it true that most mid-air collisions are fatal or they involve serious injuries? Because it seems that we hear about them and they're very, very rarely are they just minor bending metal, but there's often very, very tragic outcomes.
Right. A mid-air is a catastrophic event. It can be even a glancing contact from two airplanes can have huge effects on how they perform. So when we hear about mid-airs, we often assume that there is a serious injury or fatality involved.
So the safety alerts follow a format, and there is a section on related accidents that are shown as examples of the topic. And two of the accidents that are mentioned in this safety alert occurred in Alaska. So we've had 2 mid-air collisions already this flying season here, and we just had a fatal one in Alberta, Canada earlier this month. So what are some common factors that are seen with the mid-air collisions?
Usually it comes down to a failure of see and avoid, whether that's the pilot not looking outside the airplane, or maybe they were looking in a different area from where the other mid-air airplane that was involved came from. And there's a lot of distractions happening now, whether they're reading charts or looking at weather or looking at their instruments. People just aren't looking outside the window as much as they could be.
Do you think instructors and when they're in a situation with training students as well as on flight reviews, do you think that's being emphasized?
I would like for it to be. I hope that with the safety alert it can be. I think that flight instruction it's a very busy time. It's very task oriented. It's easy to get involved in a conversation with the student pilot about what's happening or the maneuver that you're doing, and it's easy to not look outside the window. So oftentimes you assume that having a flight instructor on board, you've got an extra cushion of safety, which is absolutely true. But you can also kind of veer away from basic tasks that you want to keep on.
And this is an interesting topic because you'd think it would be safer with an extra set of eyes to look out the airplane. So we're going to talk about that in our next session when you come back.
Great, thank you.
So thank you for taking the time to talk with us. It's been a real pleasure having you back, and we're going to look forward to our next show.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, until next time, remember to always file a flight plan and keep one set of eyes outside the airplane. Seeing and avoiding is important. Fly safely.
Westerly winds 15 to 20 knots here along the outer coastline tomorrow. Southerly winds down from the gales today there for northern Lynn Canal, 25 knots from the south tomorrow. And northwest winds 20 knots there for Clarence Strait both tomorrow and Sunday. Northwest 15 on Sunday for the central interchannels. Coming down just 20 knots from the south now for northern Lynn Canal. And west to northwest winds here 15 to 20 knots central and south coast, and then lighter westerlies up to the north. Prince William Sound, variable winds at 10 knots for tomorrow. Southwesterlies at about 20 knots here for Cook Inlet with 6-foot seas. West 20 for Kamishak Bay. And then back around to the southwest there for Shelikof Strait. Westerly winds here at the east side of Kodiak Island on up across the Barren Islands. And then for Sunday, a lot of light variable wind conditions here. Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, all of the North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands, light variable winds really laying down pretty good there, but westerlies at about 20 knots here for the Kamishak Bay area. And for the Bering or the Pacific side of the peninsula here, light variable winds tomorrow, but seas 7 to 8 feet, and then west-southwesterlies on the Bering Sea side at about 15 knots, with seas there only 4 to 5 feet. And then for Sunday, westerlies, west-southwest 10 to 15 knots about sums it up for the Alaska Peninsula here and Bristol Bay. Seas running 3 to 5 feet in all areas. And for the Aleutians, tomorrow the gale force winds into the central Aleutians here, southeast 30 to 35 knots, seas 8 to 11 feet, southeast 40 knots there west of Adak, and then 35 knots extending all the way to Shimia. Small craft advisories coming up close, but the Fox Islands southwest 10 to 20. And then the outlook for Sunday, 20 to 25 knot winds from the south-southeast for the eastern Aleutians, and southeasterlies here at about 30 knots for the central Aleutians. Small craft advisories all the way out to the western zone. For the Bering Sea, tomorrow southwest winds here 15 knots, a little bit stronger up around St. Lawrence Island at 20 knots. And in the outlook for Sunday, southerlies here about 15 knots there for the southwest coast, and then some small craft advisory winds for the Pribilof Islands and the northern Bering Sea from the southeast at about 25 knots, with these seas up to 11 feet. And for the eastern Arctic coast, east to northeast winds, 10 knots there, pretty light, about 15 knots from the northeast on the central coast, and the northerlies here for the western coastline, northwest there across Kotzebue Sound and the southeast Chukchi Sea with 3-foot seas. And taking a look at the outlook for Sunday, they'll swing around southwest 25 knots, so that's good for some small craft advisories here from Wales on up to Cape Lisburne, or actually Point Hope here from south 15 there, and then much lighter here up along the coast with northwest winds, light on the central coast, westerlies 10 to 15 knots for the eastern Arctic coast to Demarcation Point. And for tonight again, low pressure up along the Brooks Range. The front continues rain over the southeast coast, becoming a little more showery here over the southeast interior. This area of rain shifting up to the northeast tomorrow into the central interior. Thunderstorms extending back to the northwest there. Just some scattered shower conditions now over south central Alaska. Drying out from the North Gulf Coast, Bristol Bay looking pretty good. Chance of showers on the southwest coast. Gale force winds and rain heading into the central Aleutians from the west. And on Sunday, doesn't make a big push to the east, mostly sliding up to the north with high pressure here building along the southwest coast. Scattered showers over the interior and a dry day for the Panhandle and North Gulf Coast. That's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.